Welcome to the Weather Gurus podcast for the last day in July 31st, 2022. This is your weekend edition. We're going to be going over the current weather hazards for the lower 48 United States, as well as talk about the summer sizzle that is predicted for the first week in August. And we're going to look at the tropics as well as any severe storms that may be impacting your area in the lower 48 United States. I thank you for joining me on the Weather Guru podcast. Once again, please be sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest weather news for the lower 48 contiguous United States and sometimes world weather news beyond that. So right now, what we're looking at, courtesy of pivotalweather.com, is a chart of the National Weather Service current weather hazards for today and tomorrow. As you can see, most of the country is in the clear, at the exception of Kentucky is still under that flash flood watch and flash flood warning. In eastern Kentucky, there's mountainous, the Appalachian Mountains, and as well as the valleys that extend westward. Flooding is a concern, as they've had picked up over 9 to 10 inches of rain, much like St. Louis, Missouri did 2 weeks ago in this area here. And so they continue to be under flash flood watch, and one county is under a flash flood warning close to the spine of Interstate 75, just to the east of Corbin in London, Kentucky. They're heading by Lexington. So if you're in Kentucky, our prayers with you. Elsewhere, there's flash flood watches in New Mexico. The monsoonal season continues through August in New Mexico and the Four Corners of Arizona and all these areas. So if you're on I-25, coming down through the Raton, Trinidad, Colorado Pass there on I-25, heading down towards Albuquerque and I-70 interchange there, Mousetrap interchange, there's flood warnings in effect, flood watches in effect in those areas as well. Flood watches extend into the Sierras, the lower Sierra Basin, Yosemite Valley. They need those rains down there in the San Joaquin Valley and the Yosemite Valley, as well as Nevada. Now, there's also heat warnings, and this is in the Pacific Northwest. They're not typically used to seeing this type of heat in the triple digits. This extends anywhere from Spokane and Walla Walla, Washington, through the Stovepipe of Idaho, back toward the passes of the Cascade, the Whitehall Pass, Grants Pass, and those passes in Oregon as well. So if you're there, please be sure to drink plenty of water, stay hydrated, stay cool in shade, and take frequent breaks, as I know many of the homes there does not have air conditioning, central air conditioning in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. So you're under those warnings, as well as Montana. We don't want to forget the big sky country of Montana, Butte, Helena, Cutbank. Those areas are under a red flag warning, as well as an excessive heat warning or heat advisory for those areas. The temperatures will be hot. Elsewhere, we do have one area that's highlighted in gray. That's a dense fog advisory. So if you're coming out of the high plains into Kansas, western Kansas, and out of the high plains of Colorado, Guyman, Colorado, through Fort Collins on that I-76, east of I-76 corridor there in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, please be advised there's a dense fog advisory. This usually lasts through the morning to about 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time. So those are your current advisories here. Summer sizzle temps to soar from Minneapolis, Colorado to New York during the first week of August here, courtesy of AccuWeather.com. Temperatures will hit triple digits from Grand Forks, North Dakota, down through Omaha, Nebraska. This theme of the central heat bubble continues as the jet stream has buckles and creates a ridge in the center of the country. And this created a heat bubble. As you know, first it was Texas, and now it's extending all the way up through the upper Midwest. Chicago even hit mid-90s by Wednesday as the jet stream buckles way up north. And we're going to have temperatures sizzling there. So from Minneapolis, St. Paul, Omaha, down through Oklahoma City and all areas, just expect extreme heat and discomfort. Looking at the current radar the current picture for tomorrow and Tuesday, we have some showers extending for the first of the month of August and into Tuesday. These showers are extending from the plains into the Ohio Valley. There is a risk for heavy rain and flash flooding continuing through the Appalachia, anywhere from Knoxville, Tennessee, up through Charleston, West Virginia, and into that eastern Kentucky zone, Pikesville, Hazard, Kentucky. Those areas, flash flooding will continue as continue to run off from the mountains, continue to drain down in some of those deeper valleys there and hollers there in that part of the country. Now, elsewhere, we do have showers along the Gulf Coast, but high pressure will dominate. But showers will continue from just east of Houston and Beaumont and Lake Charles through Biloxi, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, up through I-65 through Montgomery, Alabama. And then we have a corridor of showers extending from Northern California all the way back down through just to the east of San Diego and Temecula Valley there, and on into the interior Southwest, once again with the monsoonal flow. And so there is some concern there for that. But elsewhere across the country, everything else looks clear. It's just hot and sunny. Now, that brings us to the Storm Prediction Center. Once again, the Storm Prediction Center, or SPC, today has issued a slight, that's a 2 out of 5 warning for Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, Minnesota, and that area, Edina, and those areas in that bullseye. They'll be in the bullseye for severe thunderstorms, which is just going to mean, some gusty winds, up to 60 miles an hour, and some hail. Tornado threat does look very low right now. And there's marginal risk extending 2 areas of marginal risk. One area extends in that same region out and extended out toward Iowa and the Quad Cities and down through Nebraska. And then there's a region of marginal risk. That's a 1 out of 5 risk for severe weather. Once again, this is from North Carolina, from the Outer Banks extending into the Piedmont of North Carolina, the Greensboro, High Point, and Charlotte area there. And also in Tucson, Arizona, and all points west along I-10 there in Tucson, there is a marginal risk of severe weather. So you may hear claps of thunder, and you may see some hail out of those storms too in the desert Southwest in association with the monsoonal flow. Texas, you get a break. That's a nice break. Texas is clear of severe storms according to the SPC. It'll just be hot, and nothing that we can't handle there. So the National Hurricane Center, we're looking at, courtesy of the National Hurricane Center, we're looking at the tropics here really quickly. Tropical cyclone activity is not expected in the next 48 hours for the Atlantic Basin. In the Eastern Pacific Basin, we still have 2 storms out there, Frank and Georgette. Frank is a hurricane, Category 1 hurricane, maximum sustained winds at 80 knots, 90 miles an hour. Pressure's holding steady at 975 millibars. Is moving northwest, at 10 knots, 12 miles an hour, and is continuing to move along that path. Georgette is further out to the southwest of the system. It's a tropical storm. It's moving at west at 6 knots, 7 miles an hour. Pressure's high at 1,002 millibars. That gives it a maximum sustained winds around 40 knots or 45 miles an hour. Both of these are just fish storms. They're not looking to impact anything. Frank is likely to start weakening over cooler waters, as most of these storms do. And Tropical Storm Georgette, it's weaker. It's a very small, compact storm, and so it will continue to just meander around. Both of these storms will meander around and without much steering currents here in the Eastern Pacific. Central Pacific, Hawaii looks good. The Big Islands and the other islands in Hawaii looks good. Georgette is way out from the east of the Big Island, east-southeast, probably a good 1,300 miles east-southeast of Hawaii right now, and so there's nothing to worry about with there. Maybe start feeling some swells later on in the week, maybe Thursday from Georgette, but they're not going to be any huge swells because this is a tropical storm and it's weakening. So, but there will be some surf coming in the south shore of Hawaii that will probably be nice for those out in that area. So once again, this has been the podcast, the Weather Guru podcast update for this weekend. Please be sure to subscribe. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed rest of your weekend.